All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into Grumpy Mr. Buzz.
Oh, this should be good.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good stack of source material here, episode summaries, pitch deck from the creator, and even some little story excerpts.
Nice.
Yeah, so we can really get a good feel for what this is all about. Kind of think a bit like a silent Mr. Bean, but with a whole lot of extra grumpiness thrown in.
Interesting. That's actually one of the things that jumped out at me from all this. You know how Mr. Bean is basically a global phenomenon?
Right.
I think Mr. Buzz could be the same way. Because it's all visual comedy, so it could really transcend those language barriers.
That's true. And the creator, Heinz Siegfried Pessner, it looks like she's definitely aiming for that global audience.
Yeah.
But before we go global, let's figure out who this Mr. Buzz really is.
Yeah.
Like, what makes him tick?
Right, right. Well, based on everything we've got here, it seems like he's this super grumpy guy who just attracts trouble.
Oh, yeah?
Like, he walks around with this attitude like the whole world is out to get him.
You can tell just from the way they describe his expressions and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not just his face. Even the simplest things, like trying to make breakfast, turn into these huge comedic disasters for him.
Oh, tell me about it.
Oh.
There's this one part where he's just trying to leave his apartment.
Uh-huh.
And he can't even make it out the door without falling into a puddle.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then it's like he gets into this silent standoff with this really cheerful old lady. You can just picture how that would play out visually.
It's just like this domino effect of hilarious mishaps. But you know what I find interesting is that for a guy who's so grumpy, he actually ends up helping people a lot. Like inadvertently, of course.
Yeah.
It's like this constant back and forth between him being totally selfish and then accidentally doing these good deeds.
It's like he doesn't even want to help, but he ends up doing it anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be a theme.
Yeah.
It's actually a major plot point in that Mr. Buzz Out for Lunch episode.
Oh, yeah. How does that go again?
Well, he basically finds himself stuck in this really fancy restaurant.
Uh-oh.
And of course, he's broke.
Of course he is.
So he can't afford anything.
Yeah.
But that doesn't stop him from trying to enjoy the whole experience.
I bet. The episode summary makes it sound hilarious, like classic visual comedy.
Yeah, he pulls out a sandwich he snuck in, tries to steal drinks.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, he even tries to use a straw to sip water out of a flower vase.
He's resourceful.
You know, it makes you wonder, though, is he really just that cheap? Or is there something else going on there?
That's a good question.
Is he desperate? Is he just messing with people? I mean, come on. Water from a flower vase.
Right.
There's definitely a mischievous side to him.
Yeah, definitely. But then you look at some of the other episodes, like when he ends up rescuing that kitten stuck in a tree.
Oh, right.
It's like he's got these flashes of compassion mixed in with all the grumpiness. It makes you wonder if he's trying to balance out those two sides of himself.
Yeah, like maybe he doesn't want to be grumpy. It's interesting, too, how the show relies so heavily on physical comedy to tell the story.
Yeah, it is. The pitch deck actually mentions Mr. Bean as a big inspiration.
Which makes total sense when you think about it.
Yeah, they both use so much physical humor, all those exaggerated movements, facial expressions, perfectly timed gags,
Right. And it totally works.
Oh,
I mean, you think about it. It's a style of humor that pretty much anyone can understand.
That's true.
It's universal.
Yeah.
And much like Mr. Bean, Mr. Buzz keeps stumbling into these everyday situations that spiral out of control, all thanks to his grumpy personality.
It's like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Exactly. They're even planning on doing an episode called, like, Mr. Buzz and the Neighbor's Party. I can only imagine the kind of trouble he's going to cause.
Oh, man. It sounds like they've got a good plan for the structure of the series, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like each episode is going to be like 6 or 7 minutes long, just pure comedic entertainment.
Oh, wow. Nice and bite-sized.
Yeah. And you know what? If anyone's curious to see what this is all about, there's actually a free episode up on YouTube right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We'll be sure to put a link in the show notes so everyone can check it out. You can really get a feel for the animation and how they translate Mr. Buzz's grumpiness to the screen.
Perfect.
It seems like they're really going for a family-friendly vibe with this series. Folks who love that kind of lighthearted visual humor.
Yeah.
But there's something else I keep thinking about. The way they talk about Mr. Buzz sort of accidentally helping people and those moments where he's not quite so grumpy,
Yeah.
I think there's potential for something deeper there.
Like some real character development.
Exactly. It's not all just slapstick and silly faces. There's this subtle exploration of kindness, even redemption, woven into the whole thing. I think it could appeal to kids and adults for different reasons,
Totally. It's like you get the laughs, but you also walk away with something to think about.
Exactly. It's what elevates it from just another cartoon to something a bit more.
For sure, for sure. Okay, so we've got a pretty good idea of who Mr. Buzz is at this point.
Yeah,
We've talked about the humor and those little heartwarming moments they're sprinkling in.
right.
But what about the series itself? Like, how is this all coming together behind the scenes?
Well, this pitch deck actually gives us some pretty good insights into that.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it talks about the overall structure of the whole series, how many episodes they've got planned. It even touches on their target audience and marketing strategy and all that.
Nice. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into that.
It says here they've already got 20 episodes fully financed and 3 completely done.
Yeah.
It seems like they're really serious about making this happen.
Yeah, it really does. And they seem to have a pretty clear plan for where they want to take the show, too.
Yeah.
And, I keep thinking back to what you were saying before about those heartwarming moments.
Yeah.
It's not all just slapstick, right? Like,
Mhm.
there's that scene where he saves the kitten.
Uh-huh.
It's like they're trying to show that he's not always a grumpy jerk.
Right, like there's actually some depth to this guy. Like maybe he's not so bad after all. He's just got this gruff exterior.
It's like he's trying to hide a softer side or
Yeah.
something. Makes you wonder, if all these crazy situations he gets into,
Yeah.
if they actually change him. Or is he, like, always been this way, deep down?
Well, that's a good question. Is he genuinely changing as the series goes on, or are we just seeing more of who he really is?
Right, like maybe he's always had this capacity for kindness,
Mm,
but the grumpiness is just like a defense mechanism.
interesting.
Yeah, and it's that kind of potential for change that really draws you in. At least for me, you're not just laughing at him tripping over things.
Yeah.
You actually want to see what happens to him.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes him such a compelling character. It's like watching a grumpy old, I don't know what the word is.
Curmudgeon.
Yeah, curmudgeon. Like watching one of those guys slowly warm up to the world.
Yeah.
I think that resonates with people no matter what language they speak. We all know someone like that, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Or we've been that person sometimes.
Exactly. And it's those little relatable elements that give the humor this extra layer, I don't know, richness.
It's like we're laughing at Mr. Buzz, but we're also kind of laughing at ourselves.
Yeah. And it's like, oh man, I've totally been there. Those moments when you let your own grumpiness get the best of you.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about the whole visual comedy thing.
Yeah.
It just creates this shared experience. You don't need words for that.
Right, right. We can all relate to feeling frustrated, feeling like things aren't going our way.
Like that scene in the restaurant. I mean, we've all had those moments where we felt out of place, like we don't quite belong. And of course, Mr. Buzz takes it to the extreme with all his crazy antics.
Yeah, that it's so perfectly timed. Like the way he hides the sandwich behind the newspaper and then that slow sip from the flower vase.
Well, that's great. And you actually end up rooting for him, even though, he's being kind of a jerk.
Yeah. Right. There's just something about how resourceful he is, even if it's totally mischievous.
And that mischievousness, it makes you think, is he really being selfish? Or is he just trying to survive?
Yeah. Like maybe the world just doesn't understand his grumpiness.
Right. And that actually makes me wonder if the grumpiness is all just an act,
Oh, like a defense mechanism?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what if he's been hurt before? Or maybe he's just scared to let people in.
That's a good point. And it's that vulnerability hiding underneath all that grumpiness that makes him so relatable.
Yeah, we all put up walls sometimes.
Exactly. But what I think is really interesting is that even with all those walls up, Mr. Buzz still finds ways to connect with people.
It's true, even if he doesn't mean to. He might be grumpy, but deep down, he's not a bad guy.
Exactly. And those little moments of connection, even if they're super brief, they're what give the whole show its heart.
It's a good reminder that even the grumpiest person can still be kind.
I think that's such a powerful message, especially these days when everything feels so cynical and divided.
Yeah, and it's all done through this really simple visual comedy. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. It's like the show is saying, hey, it's okay to be grumpy sometimes. We all have those days.
Yeah.
But don't let it define you. There's still good in there somewhere, and it always finds a way out, even if it's by accident.
All right, so we've talked a lot about Mr. Buzz himself, the style of humor, those little heartwarming moments.
Yeah.
But what about the creators?
Yeah.
Like, what are they hoping to achieve with this whole series?
Well, according to this pitch deck,
Yeah.
they want to make Grumpy Mr. Buzz a global phenomenon. They really believe this kind of humor is universal.
That's a pretty big goal.
It is.
But, I can see it happening. The character is so well done.
And the humor is spot on.
Yeah. And because there's no dialogue, it really opens it up to a much bigger audience.
Exactly. And they're not just relying on slapstick either. They're mixing it up with all kinds of visual gags, situational comedy, even a bit of sentimentality.
It's a good mix.
Yeah. And it seems like they're putting a lot of effort into making the animation really top-notch.
Oh, yeah.
You know, a really clean, expressive style. It really brings Mr. Buzz to life.
From what we've seen, it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Like the style.
It's got that classic cartoon feel, but with a modern, polished look.
Yeah. And it's really engaging, too. It feels like they've put a lot of thought into every detail of this show, from the character design to the timing of the jokes, the tone, everything.
Yeah, they definitely have a clear vision for what they want this to be. They're not just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
And speaking of strategy, I think it's really smart that they're releasing a free episode on YouTube.
Yeah, it's a great way to get people interested, you know?
It's like a little appetizer.
Yeah, it's like, hey, come try a little Grumpy Mr. Buzz. You might like it.
Speaking of appetizers, that restaurant episode is just so funny. I love how they take these totally everyday situations and just twist them into something hilarious.
It's such a classic comedic technique, taking something completely ordinary and then turning it upside down.
Like, yeah, we've all been to a fancy restaurant and felt a little awkward.
Exactly. But with Mr. Buzz, it's like all those relatable moments get blown up to these ridiculous extremes.
And it's not just restaurants either. They're doing an episode about his apartment.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Where even simple things like getting dressed turn into these huge ordeals.
I love that. It's those familiar settings that really make it work, you know?
Right, because we recognize those situations.
Exactly. And then when you see Mr. Buzz reacting to them in his own grumpy way, it just makes it 10 times funnier.
It's like the creators are saying, look, this guy's just trying to get through his day like everyone else.
Yeah.
But because it's Mr. Buzz, everything goes wrong.
Hilariously wrong. And you know what? It makes him seem even more relatable.
Yeah.
We've all had those days where it feels like the universe is against us. But seeing him go through it, we can laugh about it.
And it's almost like we're laughing at ourselves, too, you know?
Exactly. It's that feeling of we're all in this together.
That's what makes Grumpy Mr. Buzz more than just a silly cartoon. It's almost like a commentary on being human.
It is. With all the frustrations and weird little quirks. But they managed to deliver it in a way that makes you smile.
Right, and isn't that the whole point of entertainment? To make you feel something, to connect with you on a deeper level.
I think so. It seems like Grumpy Mr. Buzz is doing a really good job at that.
They're definitely doing something right. This blend of humor and heart and relatable characters, I think it could appeal to a really big audience.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Kids are going to love the slapstick and all the silly stuff.
Of course.
And then you've got the adults who can pick up on the subtle humor, the character development. And it's a good message, too, finding connection in the most unexpected places.
And don't forget, there's no language barrier here. This little grumpy guy could be making people laugh all over the world.
Imagine that. Grumpy Mr. Buzz uniting the world.
It would be amazing. It just shows you how powerful visual storytelling can be. All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Grumpy Mr. Buzz, I'm left with this sense of, I don't know, anticipation.
Yeah?
It just feels like this character, this grumpy, lovable guy, he can become something really special.
I think so, too.
So we could definitely encourage everyone to check out that free episode on YouTube and see what you think. Who knows, you might just fall in love with this grumpy little guy and his crazy world.
Yeah, and maybe, just maybe, his journey will remind you that even when life is frustrating, there's always room for laughter and a little bit of kindness.
And maybe even a heartwarming connection or two along the way. Thanks for tuning into this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
And releasing that free episode, it's a smart move. Got to build some buzz, give people a taste of what to expect.
Yeah, it's like a grumpy Mr. Buzz appetizer.
Exactly.
It makes me think about that restaurant episode again.
Oh, yeah.
Just how they take something we can all relate to and make it so funny.
It's a classic comedy thing, you know? Taking something ordinary, something we all experience, and then just flipping it on its head.
Yeah, like we said, we've all been to those fancy restaurants and felt awkward.
Right, exactly. But when it's Mr. Buzz, it's like all those relatable moments, they just get, like, amplified times 10.
And it's not just restaurants either.
No.
There's that episode about his apartment. Even making coffee turns into this huge disaster.
I love how they use those everyday settings. Like, it creates this sense of, oh, yeah, I know what that's like.
Right, it makes his reactions even funnier because we get it.
We've been there.
Exactly. It's like the show is saying, look, this guy's just trying to get through his day like you.
Yeah.
But he's Mr. Buzz, so of course it all goes hilariously wrong.
And in a way, it makes him even more relatable.
Yeah,
We've all had days like that where it feels like the universe is out to get us.
totally.
But instead of getting all mad about it, we can just laugh at Mr. Buzz's misfortune and kind of laugh at ourselves, too.
It's like that shared experience.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's a good reminder that we're all in this together.
Mm.
And I think that's why Grumpy Mr. Buzz is more than just a silly cartoon. It's really about what it means to be human.
With all the little quirks and frustrations and stuff.
Yeah, but they deliver it in a way that makes you smile.
It's true. And that's what good entertainment should do, right? Make you feel something, connect with you.
I think Grumpy Mr. Buzz is hitting the mark.
Right.
This blend of humor, heart, those relatable characters, it's a recipe for success.
Oh, yeah. It could definitely appeal to a huge audience. You got the kids who will love the slapstick, the adults who get the deeper stuff.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, it works in any language. This guy could be making people laugh all over the world.
That's the power of visual comedy.
It really is. It transcends those cultural boundaries.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into Grumpy Mr. Buzz, I'm definitely feeling optimistic. Like this character, this grumpy but lovable guy, he's got something special.
I think so, too.
So we definitely encourage everyone to check out that free episode and see what you think. Maybe you'll fall in love with this grumpy little guy just like we have.
He might just surprise you.
And maybe, just maybe, his journey will inspire you to find a little more laughter and kindness in your own life. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.